Luke here from the Sharkpod. Thanks very much for tuning into this video on networking. If you want to hear the longer version of this interview, you can get us at the Sharkpod, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like this type of content, if you want to learn more about doing business in Ireland, hit the subscribe button, and we hope you enjoy. Now over to Graham Kenny.
Call me. I hate when, and unfortunately, whether I like it or not, however grandiose delusions I have in my head, I'm in the service industry, so I'm like a glorified waiter to an extent. I need to go up and explain my wares to people and sell myself. I think, and again, it's an old kind of cliche, one belief, but there's a couple of thresholds you have to get into. So you have to have the ability. You have to know what you're talking about, or you're going to be found out eventually in anything. But to open that door, I think it's being comfortable, literally, there's no magic formula, being comfortable in your own skin. And that sounds really easy. What is that? Just be yourself. I think when you can admit your failures, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to hear about all this success or otherwise. When you can admit your failures, it's quite disarming to people. It's like, oh, well, actually, I can identify with that far quicker if there's a degree of sincerity. Oh, this lunatic's biggest business moment was when he had his face in his hands on his couch. But if you're genuine, if you're in business, if you're, for want of a better description, a player for whatever period of time, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. And they're the moments that you need. It's like they're the moments that you're alone. They're the moments that, like I said, walking into the bank, high-fiving everyone, and that's easy. Anyone can do that. So in terms of expanding your network or otherwise, it is just literally being relaxed in who you are. And that is a massive journey. That sounds like a flippant off the cuff statement. That's probably a life journey. It's one certainly that I haven't mastered. But when you know who you are, you can very quickly assess other people. And when you're portraying a character for a period of time that you're not actually it's very difficult, I think, to move outwards with people. Of course, there are people who've made fantastic networks, like the guy I've just described, through effective fraud, the Madoffs of this world. But I think to have a sustained network, it's meeting people, putting yourself in those circles. So there's, I can remember laughing to myself. I joined one of those gentlemen's clubs on Stephen's Green. I was sitting there having my dinner with all these 90-year-olds. It's putting yourself in I don't want to say I view it as work, because it sounds like you're using people or otherwise. That's as important to meet that clique of people as sitting at home writing whatever or working on whatever great piece of technology or otherwise you're on, because you're just going to be left in your bedroom with this great idea.
Who are those people, do you think, Graham? Do you think is there young, up and coming? Are they the next big thing that's going to happen, the tech entrepreneurs? Or is it...
In Ireland, I think that's another ugly reality. Particularly, all I can talk about is, I suppose, my own experience in terms of law. Yeah. There are no real young hotshot lawyers. I have more grey hair now that people will actually listen to me. And if you're 20, you don't want to hear that. But say, if I can only speak about, say, my profession, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are at 23. That looked great in some Hollywood film. If you're a guy who's in jeopardy, 200 million to a bank, are you really going to sit across from a guy who's 23 and listen? You need kind of a relationship with the person. And again, it's not a particularly sexy thing to say. It's like saying, well, you need a good network, and a particular school might help you in that regard. And I didn't go to those schools, so I can accept why people would rally against that or consider it elitist. In the same way, I would kind of consider you need years on the planet to develop the network, because it's not something. It depends what you define as a network. You can be very famous at 22, but you have very little interactions with people, and it's those interactions. Like anyone that I've encountered that's successful, they're like, I've been working with that guy for 20 years. I know him from such and such. Yeah. The younger you are, just time on the planet, and that's not, for anyone listening who's 22, well, that's not particularly helpful. That's the way it works, unfortunately. You have to be around. You have to be around. You have to be known. You have to make a particular noise. Of course, there will always be the one IT startup that at 18, he rockets into the stratosphere. But for the majority of people, in the majority, certainly in professions, and for the majority of people who are in the sales industry or entrepreneurs who are trying to get things out, very few people make it on their first go, and it's all those people you meet along the way. And who are they? Well, they're different depending on what you want to do. If you're a cartoonist, it's not going to be the same as if you're a surgeon creating some, new method of surgery or otherwise. In your particular sphere, you just have to be around, and you have to keep going for a particular period of time. Whether that's work, whether you do that, whether you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning making those calls, you're having 2 coffees a day with people. I would go for the 2 coffees a day with people, knowing them in a genuine, linking with them in a real type of sense, than shooting out your 2,000 emails to, whoever that falls into a spam box, and meeting the right people who can pull the strings for you along the way. The world isn't fair. And everyone wants to believe hard work and dedication, whatever. The world isn't fair. Once you observe what it actually is, it's a series of links. It's a series of relationships that compel you up this kind of intangible stairway. You can at least appreciate where the destination is. So I would say, in whatever sphere you're in, genuine coffees with people over a prolonged period of time. That's not particularly sexy advice. There's no fireworks going off. I'm not 10xing anything, but that's what I believe is genuine and real advice.